outside of that, we do have quite a bit of other very cool things that are almost kind of specific to Charleston. We have a tea plantation, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
I was just reading up. I knew that there was, I have a little bit of background in tea,
Hmm.
and I was just reading. I was trying to look at some interesting things about tidbits about Charleston, and I didn't realize it was the only state, apparently, according to one website I saw, that grows tea here in the
Yes.
United States. But yeah, that is down in Charleston, and I guess you can visit a tea plantation right here in
You
the U.S.
can, yeah, and a lot of times they have a lot of they'll have concerts and other events there, which is just really cool because, I mean, where can you go and listen to live music and, you're also kind of sitting on a working tea plantation. It's
And
just really cool.
have you tried any of the tea that
I
come
have.
out of? Okay, how it's pretty good, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, it's very
That's
good.
good.
Yeah. So we've also got the Firefly Distillery, which I'm not sure
Okay.
if you or your listeners are familiar with Firefly. I don't drink, so I'm not really sure like what exactly it is, but it's kind of like a sweet tea vodka, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Um, and it's really popular to mix with lemonade. This
Okay.
is what the kids tell me. I'm
That
not really
already
sure.
sounds like a very good Southern drink, that's for sure.
So we've got that, and you can visit that, and they do really like cool events there too. We've also got a lot of brewers here in
Mm-hmm.
Charleston, which I know they're kind of popping up everywhere, but some of the bigger ones would be Westbrook, Holy City. We've got one called Frothy Beard, which is really cool, and they do a lot of different events throughout the year, which are really fun. Um, a place where you and I went, Fred, Botany Bay Plantation, which is where the boneyard is.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I recall as being Edisto, right? Was that the Edisto Island area?
Yeah, that was kind of in the Edisto area. Yes. One thing I do want to say about this, though, they did have quite a bit of damage from Hurricane Matthew, but
Oh
they
no.
are reopening this summer, which is great.
Oh,
So,
well, that's good to know because I was going to mention in my notes. I was going to link up a few of the pictures. That to me, that was such a cool experience. Driving out to the Boneyard, which was so neat because prior to my first trip to Charleston, I was teaching a college photography course, and we were watching. I had got this DVD. This is when kind of HDR, high dynamic range, was kind of a newer thing with digital photography, and we were watching this instructional DVD in the course, and the whole DVD was a photographer visiting Charleston, which was so neat. And this was literally like the day before I came down, and one of the places he went to was the Boneyard. But just to me, that whole experience, catching the sunrise there, being at the Boneyard, but also the experience of even was like journeying through the middle of the night to find that was to me a fun memory of being in Charleston. But yeah, that's definitely that would be on my to do list for someone, especially if they're a photographer.
sure, and I think for people who don't know what we're talking about whenever we reference the boneyard, just to kind of and I'll do a very poor job of explaining this. So you actually this is one of those places where you just need to see it to kind of believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically just a beach where erosion has kind of taken over. There are a number of trees out in the water that have been subjected to salt from the ocean. They are constantly in full sun, and it almost just looks like they're kind of skeletons
Mm-hmm.
popping out of the water. And it's a very interesting place. And I remember we found a lot of cool shells there, and I think we found a skull, like an animal
An
skull
animal
too.
skull.
Yeah. Um, but it is a place where you're not allowed to take anything with you. You're not allowed to take any of the shells because it is a very kind of delicate ecosystem. So just if you go there, please don't take anything off of the beach.
Very good to know. Very good to know.
You'll
Well,
be fined.
anything else on your must do list? Any other things to do that you recommend?
I think that a lot of people really enjoy shopping on King Street. That's really
Okay.
not something that I am too terribly fond of, but it's something that people come to Charleston to do. So I would think
Mm-hmm.
that that would probably be nice for some people. And then I also think that we have a lot of really good farmers markets. And I mentioned the one,
Yes, yes, I remember that.
yeah, I mentioned the one in Marion Square, which is right across from the Francis Marion Hotel, and that one is fantastic. And it runs just about all year long. But it is just I mean, it's one of the biggest farmers markets that I think I've ever been to, and they have something for everyone there. They have fruits and vegetables, they have flowers, they have so many, just artists and local wares, and they also have entertainment and food food trucks and things like that. And it's a really cool experience.
Okay. Well, I have two questions for you about things to do, and then we'll move on to my favorite topic, places to eat. Yeah. So, have you done? Because you can see it from the city, of course, along the shore, but I never actually went there and did the tour. But you didn't bring up visiting Fort Sumter. Have you actually Have you gone to the fort and done a tour there?
You know what? It's so funny. Everyone in my family has done that, but I have not. And
It's
that's
it's a big tourist thing, and sometimes when you live at a place, there's things that you do as a tourist and things that you
right.
do, as a resident.
Yes.
And I didn't know if you had actually visited the tour, but from at least from the experiences of the people around you that have done it, does it seem like that people enjoy the tour, or is it something that might be a little bit of a letdown, or do you think it's something that's worth doing and that you would recommend?
I think it's definitely something worth checking out. And I feel too that if you're really into the history of this city, you definitely want to do it. Um, just because, I mean, it's, yeah, I think that it's something that people would want to do. I would maybe recommend kind of staying away from it during the peak summer months.
Right. Yes, it's very busy then.
Um, but I think that it's definitely something that people should do, especially if they have a keen interest in the history of this city. So
Yeah, and that's the one thing. I mean, if I guess if someone's interested in Civil War history, that's a must-go-to place, and there's all sorts of civil history around Charleston. Have you ever done any? And I'm just assuming, I'm making the assumption that Charleston has some night tours, whether it's evening walking tours, whether it's like history tours or ghost tours or anything like that. Have you? Does Charleston have things like that, and have you ever done one?
they do, and I have never done one. My sister, however, has done quite a few of them whenever she's been visiting. She has done they have like the ghosts of Charleston, where you kind of walk through the graveyards, and that's really cool. But she's also done the jail tour,
Ooh,
and it's
okay.
it's kind of like, and unfortunately, I mean, my husband could tell you more about this because he used to do tours. um, but the jail was where like a lot of just bad, like pirates were kept, and they
Uh-huh.
had a lot of people that were kind of captured on the water and brought to the jail. And so there are a lot of haunted spaces. If
Hmm.
you believe in that sort of thing, there are a lot of haunted spaces in the city. And so they do a lot of tours kind of kind of buying into that, and kind of surrounding that, which my sister really enjoyed. So
Well, so I got one follow-up question, and then we'll move along because I only have a few minutes left here. But when you mentioned, a lot of the history of the ghost tours and the spirits and things like that, and I can't remember if it was when I was in New Orleans or Charleston, but they both do this similarly. But in terms of right there by Fort Sumter and that part of town where you can see it, of course, what is it called? Rainbow Row, right? Where all the buildings. Now, is it true in Charleston, or does that have any linkage back to? There was a theory in time that the colorful houses would keep spirits away at night and stuff like that. Have you heard any stories along those lines, or does Rainbow Road, the colors of the houses, have a different history?
I'm not actually sure what the history is behind the colors on those houses. I know that they haven't always been like that,
Oh, okay.
but I'm not quite sure why they are painted the way they are, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
And I can't remember, and I feel like it was when I was in Charleston, maybe my second trip, learning a little bit about that the colored buildings had something to do with, an old belief that bright colored buildings helped keep evil spirits away from your home. So maybe that has part of it. So now let's jump into again my most exciting part here, but where to eat. So Molly, I'm coming to Charleston. Where should I eat?
Okay, so my absolute favorite place to eat in this city is Hall's Chop House.
Okay.
If you like steak, this is the place to be.
Well, okay, we like steak.
Yeah, they've also got, according to my husband, they have a really great selection of scotch.
Ooh,
Um,
okay. That's not even
so
better.
yes, but Halls, they are local owners. They have been here. I mean, it's it's a generational thing. So, you walk in and you are immediately greeted by the owner and then his son and his daughter-in-law. I mean, it's a very cool experience to just to be in a restaurant where people have owned it for 30, 40 years,
Hmm.
because restaurants don't typically they don't typically last that long.
Yeah, they
um,
must be doing something right there.
they definitely are. So this is the kind of place where you sit down, they bring you kind of the tray of the different cuts of meat. They talk to you about them. It takes a little bit of a long time to kind of get through the meal, but that's totally fine. We like to kind of slow things down here anyway. Um, but the steak is phenomenal. It is, and as I'm saying this, my mouth is watering because it is that good. They also have just really great options for side dishes, and it is one of those places where things are kind of a la carte, which is fine. But if you're going to Halls, you should probably expect to spend a little bit of money because it's definitely on the higher end of the price range.
Oh well, yes. And on any trip, a big part of the budget is always eating out. That's for sure. But that's part of the vacationing experience.
Yes. But another thing that I really like about Halls, and they have done this every single time we have been there. Um, a couple days after your visit, you'll actually get a card in the mail,
Okay.
and whoever was serving you that evening will actually write you a little handwritten thank you note, which I just think is so nice, and I think it's so characteristic of this city.
Hmm.
So
There's Southern hospitality, right?
definitely, yeah, I
All
think
right.
so.
Any other dining recommendations?
Yes. So a lot of people have probably heard of Husk. Husk is kind of, they've been featured in a lot of like food and beverage magazines and kind of, like number one lists for kind of local flavor. Husk is really good. For people that are interested in seafood, we've been to Hank's, and Hank's is really good. We've actually taken friends to Hank's who were visiting us from Pittsburgh, and they've loved it. Another cool little place in an actual mansion, which is really fun, is called Circa 1886. They
Hmm.
have really good food. That's downtown. And then for people who really, really love barbecue, because I've been giving you all of these fancy restaurants, but um, let's be honest, brisket is amazing, especially
Yes.
if it's done right. And we've got a really, really heavy hitter in the barbecue world
Okay.
in Charleston now, and this is new, so you haven't even had a chance to experience this. But
Okay.
John Lewis is he kind of spent some time in Austin, kind of perfecting his barbecue formula, and he brought it back here to Charleston, and it is just phenomenal. And they're even on a weekday, the lines are out the door to get this barbecue, so he's doing something right.
And I one of the places I really enjoyed when visiting. Now it was less. It wasn't what I don't recall the food so much because it was called the Gin Joint. But is the Gin Joint still there? And is that still a popular place?
Yes, the gin joint is still here. It was actually on my list to talk about. They have, and actually, I just saw that they are working on their new summer menu because a lot of places in Charleston, they made the move to like farm to table not that long ago. So we have a lot of things that we're, kind of eating whenever we go out to a restaurant that was grown locally or that was sourced locally, which is fantastic. And so they have been working to develop their summer cocktail menu, and that's pretty much all they have there is just cocktails. And they're kind of the fancy ones where you get, the the big ball of ice and the proper glass and all of that sort of thing. So that is still there. They're still doing great.